Alright, I'm going to talk about my Game & Watch combos, kind of more focusing on the low percent and mid percent combos. I think those are really important in his game plan and flowchart, kind of getting your opponent to like that 50 to 60% mark, and then how to go from that 50 to 60% mark to like your kill percents and being able to finish a stock with Game & Watch. So starting off, I guess just talking about throw combos. They're pretty basic, I would say. Game & Watch has at 0% you can either do down throw or up throw. Both lead to kind of about the same percent. So if I grab Mario here at 0 and I just do nair up air, that's about 32%. That's like your pretty basic bread and butter right there. Same thing with up throw. You kind of can just get that grab at 0 and do up air, and then you're at that 26 mark. One thing to note about these combos too is that your opponent is put into a really bad disadvantage against Game & Watch. Now some characters can get out of this situation pretty easily, just like Zero Suit Samus for example. With flip kick and her high jump, how to do the down throw up air. Like here your opponent's in a pretty bad spot. There aren't many characters that can get out of that, so you're pretty much free to be able to kind of keep mashing your up air just because of how good the move is with your opponent in disadvantage above Game & Watch, and how fast he can be able to react to you landing, either with, you could, if you catch your opponent landing and not really pressing any buttons, you could do nair, and then keep going with up airs, but if you keep doing up airs, just kind of waiting for your opponent to land, when they could be at 60% by then. Now I think you can do nair up air, but the problem with this combo is that your opponent probably will be either SDIing or DIing your nair. So it's kind of important to know, like, okay, I can maybe get the 42% if I land both, or like land all three, but you're going to be guaranteed this 32%, just straight off of just those two moves. That no SDI or DI will be able to stop that 32% and like that disadvantage state being in there. And another thing to note about Game & Watch, especially his nair, whatever way that you were going with Game & Watch, your opponent will be going the other way. So if I grab Mario here and I hold to the right, Mario's going to be sent to the left. Kind of the same thing, if I grab Mario and hold to the left, he's going to be sent to the right. So it's important to kind of stay underneath your opponent a little bit. And you can kind of, what I like to do is like shimmy a little bit. I'll go to the right a little bit, and then kind of go back to the left, just so I can kind of stay underneath my opponent. But most of the time, like if you're at the 0% combos, you really kind of want to stay pretty flat, not moving too much, so you can guarantee that percent. Alright, the next combos that Game & Watch has are your nair and fair combos. So with nair's a pretty good approaching tool. I mean, the hitbox it's massive, it's a huge hitbox, and it's relatively safe. If Mario would be holding shield, I can kind of cross behind him, and with Mario he can either do nair, up B, out of shield, but if characters don't have really good out of shield options, you're pretty much safe to do that. But just for nair, you can approach with nair and get that landing hitbox with nair, and kind of go into like a 3-string nair combo. This combo can lead to up to like 45%-ish done right. It's all relatively true. Your opponent can probably jump either away or react out of it, but if you do catch your opponent not jumping there, or maybe catch their jump, they're put in a really bad spot and there really isn't much they can do. You might have to take even more nairs after that. So it's important to know that a lot of Game & Watch's combos at early percent kind of lead to your opponent being in the air, which is a really good thing, because you're able to get more percent through either up air or up B, and keep your opponent in disadvantage. Another combo at 0% that Game & Watch can do is landing with fair. You can either do this with the initial hit of fair or without the initial hit of fair, but it's important that you fast fall this, because you do want to be on the ground. So just do fair normally, and I'm not fast falling. I kind of mash the bomb speed a little bit. I want to fast fall, so I kind of beat the bomb down, and I'm then able to react a little bit faster with my nair. So if I land with fair and I kind of fast fall, I'm able to kind of go into that nair and get more percent off of it, and then kind of end up, like I said before, where Mario is in that disadvantage state where I can just, keep kind of shirking below him and just react to which way he's drifting. Your opponent obviously can react to bomb dropping and just throw out, like for example, it's Mario, he can just throw out nair, and then now, if you really overcommit to that, they can react to your nair, shield, and then kind of punish you for that. It's not your safest combo, but it's definitely something that you can do as a mix at low percent to definitely get that 0 to 50% combo. Kind of going beyond just your normal bread and butter combos, I think this is an important important thing to talk about, especially now with Smash, with the game being out for almost 7 years now. Majority of players that play now are gonna know your combo routes, and they're gonna not mash air dodge, but they definitely try to SDI out of them and can buffer air dodge at times. So what's important to know is that you can kind of almost guess what your opponent's gonna do, and it could lead to a lot more. Just for example, if I am doing my initial Nair combo with Nair 1 and I notice that my opponent is air dodging a lot, for example, with the initial Nair combo landing with just the last hit of Nair, if I notice that my opponent is, air dodging or kind of mashing to get out of it, you could be really patient with it and go for the fair at the end there, and then kind of continue going to that more true combo. It'll lead to more percent, I think, and can also set up for like some cheesy side B kills as well. So it just kind of depends on what your opponent is doing, but definitely something to think about with, like, depending on where your opponent lands, you can kind of think, okay, what can I get off of this, right? Like if I get another Nair, being at 0%, just knowing like, okay, my opponent's air dodging, he's definitely scared of my Nair, okay, like let me react to what you just did, and then kind of go from there. The same thing kind of applied with like your throw combos. Like if you get throw Nair and they're just like spamming air dodge there, you can just wait, either grab again, or you could even go for like, okay, wait, and then like there's your fair again. Right, so Nair, okay, you air dodge, I just fair. That's gonna probably catch neutral air dodge. Now, kind of talking about the mid-percent combos, so for like throws, you can kind of do down throw up air, depending on which way your opponent DIs. Now they could be DIing to the left, and then not be being true. Or to hold the stick to the left, now it's to the left. You kind of just Mario goes straight up, and then same with like holding to the right, down throw. I mean, you definitely can still react to it, but mid-percent combos with up air is definitely reacting to, okay, which way is my opponent DIing, and being able to react to that. Same thing kind of applies to up air. You can do the same thing, the difference just being double jump, and up air is a little bit better than down air. The way that your opponent can DI both throws, they can aggressively DI down throw more than they can up throw, so it's kind of important to know, like, okay, if I up throw, they're pretty much gonna be in the spot that I want them to be at, compared to, okay, if I down throw, where is my opponent gonna be? Like, I have to kind of guess a little bit more. I can extend it further with up B. It's true, up to like 80% or something. But the higher percent that your opponent is, where you kind of have to react to, okay, the DI track's gonna be a little more aggressive on up throw, the higher you get. So if your opponent is DIing out, you can definitely react to, like, up B angled more to the right, and if they to the left, you can kind of react to it the same way, just going to the left. This is really good because if you grab and put them off stage, now your opponent's back in disadvantage off stage. That's really good for Game & Watch, just because Game & Watch's ledge trapping tools are so good. I'd say those combos are pretty much kind of like your bread and butters, especially in neutral. Down throw and up throw being relatively true with Nair and up air at like low percent, and then your mid percent being kind of like getting your throws and kind of reacting there. So after throw kind of combo confirms at mid percent, you still can do falling Nair and get a true combo out of it. The only issue being at mid percent like that, it's not going to be as true as it was at 0. It's because your opponent can more aggressively DI that. If Mario would be holding out that whole time, there's no way that I can be able to get that second Nair off. It just kind of depends on what your opponent is doing. Even like mixing up holding into wouldn't be as true, but you definitely can still kind of do at like the mid percent range. You can get the initial hit of fair, but again, your opponent can react to that. You can get an up air out of it as well. It's a little tighter, just because you're pretty much doing that really close to the frame that you land, not being able to do up air. It's a little harder to do, but I think once you kind of get to like this mid percent, like you definitely should be like working on like, okay, like can I get any grabs to like kind of confirm to get my opponent above me or off stage, but you still can do that falling Nair with a couple of different things. You could even do back throw out of it. It all just kind of depends, but like at that mid percent, you're really trying to focus on like, okay, how can I get my opponent off stage or in disadvantage, whether it's being above me, whether it's off stage at the ledge, to kind of continue doing that more damage, because I think Game & Watch really thrives when either your opponent is above you, off stage, or at the ledge, because you have so many tools to be able to keep your opponent there and kind of rack up that damage. Another thing that I want to talk about too is Game & Watch's ledge combos. They are kind of gross. I would say they are kind of They should be a mix-up. They should be something you do often. But if you definitely have seen any of the videos that I've made, a lot of them do kind of result from me landing like a nair off of the ledge, kind of catching my opponent off guard, and doing something along like that line of like, okay, I can catch my opponent's jump with up B, and it can lead to a 0 to death, which is pretty cool. But it's never true. Your opponent doesn't have to jump here. They can just kind of keep falling and hold their jump. But yeah, if your opponent is off stage and they mash jump out of hit stun, they will die to the up B. So it's definitely you should like think about mixing up off the ledge. But I wouldn't say do it every single time, only because it is really risky to do nair from ledge, because your opponent could just hold shield there and then kind of react out of it. Like right there, like he didn't really jump, but you kind of gauge what it would look like if your opponent would jump, and that was me holding out the entire time. The up B hitbox is big enough to cover either if they just jump holding to the left, jump holding back, or jump just in place. Another thing that I like to do with nair off stage, especially having your opponent in that kind of position of like, okay, do they jump or do they kind of just like regular fall down to avoid the up B, is if you kind of know your opponent isn't gonna jump there, you can B reverse with Chef and kind of cover that late jump and maybe catch their double jump, and then they have no more resources to recover. Now this isn't going to work on every character, but definitely some of the linear recovery characters like Mario, Cloud, Pyramithra, who don't have a lot of resources when they're off stage, and they get hit by, you know, one or two of the little pieces of bacon, then they're pretty much dead as well from there. And a thing with Chef 2 off stage like this is you can do up to 3 pieces of bacon or meat or whatever it is, and still be able to recover and make it back to the ledge. Other thing to note too about this is even if I were to hold forward there, I still hit them on a late recovery jumping. It definitely just kind of matters on how your opponent is reacting to it. So like there, I just did 2, they can still recover. Because doing that kind of combo with the up B, if it doesn't work and they do go below you, now they're beating you back to the ledge because you're recovering here, right? Mario can definitely beat me back to the ledge after I just did that. So it's kind of important to know, like, okay, if I know my opponent isn't going to jump or, you know, commit to any kind of resources up top to maybe get a snipe kill with it, then I can definitely B reverse my Chef to maybe snipe a recovery option from Mario. But depending on the scenario, like if you're up a stock and you're able to do this, like I think it's so valuable to be able to take a stock, especially in certain situations. Other thing that I want to talk about too is your out of shield combos with up B. At 0%, you are able to kind of get a falling nair out of it as well, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's broken. It's not pretty cool. It's broken. To where if my opponent is pressuring my shield and how fast my up B comes out, at like 0% to like 10%, I'm able to kind of get that falling nair afterward, and then even kind of follow up with up airs to keep my opponent disadvantaged. So for mid% comp with up B, you can kind of do the same thing, just now instead of doing nair, you can kind of just fast fall with up airs, and it kind of like leads to the same result. Like I'm able to react and then like kind of land with up air to kind of keep that percent going. So with some characters who like kind of like to hover above your shield, maybe double jump and then land with something, if you're able to catch that double jump and then up B and then put them in this position, now Mario doesn't have a jump or any other resources to kind of land, and I'm able to freely press up air and maybe lead to more, you know, after 68%, okay, now you're at 86, you have no resources, oh, now you're at 93, which way are you drifting? Okay, I can kind of react to it, and then now you're at 104, yeah, kill percent, and now I'm ledge guarding. So overall, that's pretty much like your basic bread and butters with Game & Watch, especially at like those low percents to mid percents, you know, kind of doing a little recap of like you have your throw combos being down throw, up throw at low percent, kind of leading into those nairs, then up air strings, and then with up B out of shield, you can definitely hit a nair and then kind of follow up with those up airs, pressuring your opponent above you. And then once you kind of get to that mid percent, you have those combos of where it's like, okay, I can grab you and get more up airs, or even land with nair still. Maybe get a fair, a cheeky fair, maybe a raw back air, you know, landing with fair, maybe getting an up B, and then keeping your opponent off stage. And then from the ledge, you have those 0% combos of like, if I hit a nair, mixing up my opponent, I can kind of back air string you off stage, and then I can kind of 50-50 of like, okay, are you going to jump? And then kind of can catch the jump with up B, or I can react to like, okay, you're not going to jump, now I can B reverse Chef, put more pressure projectiles off stage, and then still recover. Just important to know with Game & Watch is that his approach options, they're reactable. Nair being a big hitbox, but this entire time that I'm pressing Nair, only the last hit of Nair is hitting. So you have this entire time to be able to react to like Game & Watch come at you with Nair. Try mixing up your opponent landing behind them, especially ones that don't have good mix-up options, or not mix-up options, that don't have good out-of-shield options, so you can freely kind of not get punished by fishing for your low percent and mid percent combo starter. But you can definitely like kind of mix up like empty hop. I can mix up my opponent, now I can go for a grab. So if I do decide to like mix up my opponent, okay, I can kind of shuffle back, maybe go for like a grab, and kind of play neutral there. But definitely something to think about with Game & Watch when you're kind of fishing for those low percent combos, especially playing a good player. They're gonna be probably keeping their distance from you, knowing that you want to get either Nair, fair, or a grab, and kind of reacting to like, okay, my opponent just Naired. Now Game & Watch has some in lag to him here, so like I can shield here. That was a pretty good chunk of time. Like my opponent can like, okay, he missed his Nair. What can I do in that frame of like you're landing? How can I react to that and punish you, and then kind of go for my combo starter instead? But yeah, overall I feel like his combos are pretty good. The low percent to mid percent combos. Let me know if you have any questions or other ideas about Game & Watch with this combos. I'd love to hear more about them. And also let me know if you want to hear more about Game & Watch, maybe like ledge trapping, neutral, disadvantage, advantage. I'd love to explain more about it and what Game & Watch can do out of it. So yeah, peace.